Okay, thank you so much for being with us. I want to start out with the historical significance of Quds Day. Go ahead and give us a little bit of that background.
Well, it's important for people to know that Al-Quds Day started more than 40 years ago after the revolution in the Islamic Republic of Iran. The leader and the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, Sayyid Imam Khomeini, decided to start on the last day, Friday of Ramadan, 4 weeks of that month, last week. The last Friday of Ramadan would be called Al-Quds Day to keep the Al-Quds memory in the hearts and minds of the Muslim people. But then it transcended the Muslim religion and then went on to more pro-Palestinian activists and campaigners who stand with the right of Palestine to be free against the oppression from the Israeli regime. Now, the importance of this day is not only a religious one, rather it's more of a political, social one. Why I'm saying this is because it started with Ramadan, which is a very holy month for the Muslims, and a Friday, which is a very holy day for the Muslims. Every Friday is a very holy day, just like Sundays are holy for the Christian religion. So Friday is very important. The last of Ramadan, which speaks about patience, it speaks about justice, it speaks about standing against tyranny and against the oppressors. It speaks about giving justice to the people who own the land, who have been suffering for the past 72 years since the Israeli entity came to be, founded by the Western world, mainly by Britain and the Americans later on. So this day was made to mark Al-Quds, which is the capital of Palestine, in the hearts of Muslims. And to begin with, it's a very important religious city because it was the first Qibla. Qibla is the way that Muslims pray. They stand towards a certain area and they start praying. Al-Quds was the first Qibla of the Muslims, and then it changed and it became Mecca. That's with the prophet, with the last prophet Muhammad of Islam. So that's why Al-Aqsa Mosque, Al-Quds, is very important for Muslims. But we need to understand that Al-Quds is also very important for Christians and Jews. But I'm talking about Jews who are not Zionists. I'm talking about Jews who are actually pro-Palestinians, who know that Palestine has a full right to exist from the river to the sea, but this right has been, if you will, usurped by the colonial power, put into place by imperial powers. I'm talking about Israel being the colonial power, put in place by the British and then the Americans. Why it is important to commemorate it in this day and age? It is very important because 72 years later, this is the longest occupation in living memory. This is still the longest occupation against natives in living memory. 72 years and nothing has changed. More annexation of land, more injustice against the Palestinians, more killing of teenagers and mothers alike, not only the resistance fighters who have every right to resist, by the way, and more, if you will, usurping and kidnapping the willpower, the political power, the administrative power of the Palestinians themselves, which ended with the deal of the century by Trump and Kushner.
Absolutely. So continue with that, Mawra. I want to ask you how people are continuing to reject this year in particular, the so-called deal of the century of the United States and Israel.
Look, before even the deal of the century was actually announced, we heard Palestinians saying, no, this is our land, this is our right, we need to retake it. I hear a lot of my Western friends asking me sometimes, why isn't there any place for peace in the Middle East? One very vital answer, and simple, to be honest with you, is justice. You will never have peace if you don't have justice. And the epitome of injustice is the deal of the century. Why? Because if you look at the deal of the century, you see that it takes more land from the Palestinians, the West Bank, which is now occupied. It all has to be annexed by the Israeli regime. The Jordan Valley, which has the most amount of water, of clean water to be used, drank, and used for cultivation purposes, is also going to be annexed and occupied by the Israeli regime. And then you have the willpower of the Palestinians themselves. If you look at the map that is mapped out by Jared Kushner and which is accepted by Netanyahu and Trump, it's like looking at a piece of cheese that has been cut to more than 100 pieces. It's ridiculous. It's illogical. How would you talk about peace between any two groups of people, not to say two states, but because this is not the case, any two groups of people? How would you talk about peace if there's injustice there? You are not only taking away their home, their land, their willpower, their political power, their administrative power to be themselves free enough to make political decisions and administrative decisions. You're also taking their lives away, because if you say no, you will die with a bullet. Just 2 weeks ago, a 14-year-old boy was murdered in the city of Tulkarm, which is in occupied West Bank. He was murdered. He was sniped only because he's a Palestinian. Now we're getting into the apartheid state of Israel. The deal of the century was denied from day zero, not even day one, from the Palestinians, because this is a continuation of how the international community is stealing away the will and the if you will, the resistance, the real resistance of the Palestinian people. It's like someone coming into your house, taking away your house, taking away your car, and some intermediary comes along and tell you, look, we should stop fighting and talk together. But the person who stole your house, who stole your car, can have it all, and you have to sit down and listen to what we have to say. This is not intermediation. This is bigotry. This is it's bullying. It is not policing. It's the absolute opposite of policing. It's actually being a criminal, a warmongering criminal. This is what the Trump administration is doing by announcing this deal of the century. This is what Netanyahu has been doing, along with starting from Ben Gurion until today, stealing, killing Palestinians, apartheid state where the Palestinians will have, they call it a citizenship, but it's a second-class citizenship, exactly like what happened in apartheid South Africa. You are not allowed to breathe if you don't accept these rules and regulations by the Israeli occupation forces. So what kind of a deal is this? This is an imprisonment of entire people, funded, to be honest with you, by none other than Arabs themselves, by the United Arab Emirates and by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. How low can this deal be any further when you have your own brothers standing with your oppressor against you? This is what the deal of the century is for the Palestinians.
Absolutely. And here in Latin America, we discuss a lot about the U.S. blockade on Cuba and Venezuela. I want to ask you, in which similar ways has Palestine been affected by similar measures?
Well, last week I was part of a campaign. It was called hashtag Stop the Sanctions. It was against sanctions against Venezuela, Cuba, Ecuador, against sanctions on Syria, on Iran, on Gaza, on Yemen, and lately on Lebanon as well. Gaza has been facing blockade for more than 16 years now. And I'm talking about full blockade, maritime blockade, aerial blockade, land blockade. They cannot even get out of Gaza, even from the Egyptian side, not only from the occupied Palestinian side. Even Egypt is standing against them. They are suffocating. They are not allowed to have electricity. They are not allowed to have clean water. All of the clean water is being taken by the Israeli colonial settlers up to the north from Gaza. They are not allowed to go. They are allowed by international law 6 nautical miles to fish. Israel kills them, snipes them if they go out more than 1.5 or maximum 2 nautical miles into the sea. So you're suffocating a people, no water, no food, no electricity, no airport. This is the biggest prison on earth. It's the biggest open prison on earth. This is how Gaza has been suffering from the sanctions. Why? Because they were able to liberate this small patch of land because of the resistance, and they were like, well, you want to keep us out? We're going to suffocate you. This is what they have been doing again for Gaza for more than 16 years. And this is exactly what they did to Lebanon for 22 years. Just today, we commemorate, it's a coincidence, but it's a very nice coincidence. Today, we commemorate the 20th anniversary of liberating South Lebanon from the Israeli entity. They suffocated us for 22 years until our resistance, along with our army, stopped them, took the land back, and kicked them out of our land and our soil, and gave us back our freedom to move along, freedom to build our houses again, our businesses, and to fish in our seas as well. And now we are fighting with the Zionist entity, with the Israelis in Lebanon, to try and get our own oil from our territorial waters, and they won't let us. Why? Because they have the backing of the United States of America. So consider that, and we are free. Now put it on Gaza, which is being blockaded from every side. And if you look at the West Bank as well, the occupied West Bank, the occupied Jerusalem, they're also being suffocated. Have you seen the wall? Have the people seen the wall, the apartheid wall that goes all the way through the Jerusalem and other villages in the West Bank? This is apartheid. If it's not apartheid, I don't know what you're going to call it. but it's taking the lives of the people. It's cutting their houses in the middle. It's ridiculously, it's laughable, but it's very painful at the same time, because it's happening in 2020 when the international community keeps telling us that we, the natives, are the savages, and the Israelis are actually the democracy in the region.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Dr. Marwa. And I would like to ask as well, this is Quds Day is an important day to mark for peace-loving, freedom-loving people in support of the Palestinian cause all around the world. We've heard many people say that as well. And at the same time, I would like to hear your thoughts on the fact that there are 5 Iranian oil tankers making their way to Venezuela right now. I know you know about that. Give us your thoughts on that.
I actually tweeted by mistake that they broke the blockade, because I was very, very happy and excited that they are going to break that blockade against Venezuela. But apparently they entered international waters instead of Venezuela territorial waters. And I'm pretty sure that they will enter, they will break that blockade. And even more importantly, they not only will break that blockade to give products very much needed by the suffocating Venezuelan people who deserve to be free from every imperial power, they will also be bartering it with gold. And this is what's going to make the US go crazy. The gasoline that's going to go into Venezuela, Iran will take gold and not US dollars out of Venezuela. This is telling the imperial power that is grabbing the entire resources on this planet that stay still. Wait a second, we will not allow you to suffocate us anymore. We will do the trading the way we want to do it. We will not abide by your rules, because they are not rules. This is warmongering policies. And if you dare stop us, we are ready to go to war. I think this is the best message to be given right here and right now, especially with the pandemic, with the global pandemic that everyone is suffering from. This is the time where we need to stand together, not to be cut out of the world and suffocate it more with US sanctions. I think that this is a great message from the people of Iran towards the people of Venezuela, telling them, despite the distance between us, we are brothers. We should cooperate, especially in the face of all tyrants and all oppressors.
Thank you so much. That was a very good message to end on. We've been speaking to Dr. Marwa Osman. She is a political commentator joining us from Beirut today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.